everyone. Do you have a project at home or a task at work that you just keep putting off? Something you're consciously avoiding doing, even though you know avoiding it is probably a bad idea. Sarah joins me to talk about why we procrastinate and to share some strategies we can use to help us take action and get things done. Sarah, why do we procrastinate?
Well, I guess at a high level, there's two main reasons. First is the obvious one. It's something you don't want to do. And actually, that kind of procrastination is a fairly easy fix. You usually just need a bit of external accountability. It's why you have to threaten your kids with no screen time if they don't do the chores. It's why I have to pay for expensive gym classes if I'm actually going to get my butt to the gym. So something outside of the self to fix it. The other kind is the kind that's actually a little more painful, a little more frustrating. And that's the kind of procrastination where you really do want to do the thing, but you feel overwhelmed. And in that case, the fix is actually dealing with the overwhelmed feeling, which is a little more complicated.
Oh, tell me about it, because so many people are feeling overwhelmed right now. So we can't change the environment. So how do we deal with it?
Yeah, well, let's say you're someone who's feeling really overwhelmed with a project because it's a large project. If you're someone who loves that little serotonin hit of like checking off your to-do list, you're probably someone who struggles with longer term projects or things that take a long time or things that are really big because you don't get that hit right away, right? And so the fix for those individuals is actually to sort of take smaller bites and break things down into mini milestones. So you can still get that hit of checking off the mini milestone, even though the full completion is fairly far off. It gives you the feeling of progress, even though you're not technically done. But let's say you're feeling overwhelmed with a project because it's new. That's kind of a different feeling of overwhelm. And I just got to say, like, shout out to my fellow perfectionists, because those of us who struggle with that, we don't like trying new things if we're not sure if we're going to knock it out of the park, right? So there's a paralysis that comes with that. So for those of us that struggle with those things, again, totally raising my hand here, what we actually have to do is focus on increments of time spent working on the thing instead of mini milestones. Because when you're trying something new, you can't realistically predict how long something's going to take. And if you set out to finish something at the end of the day that is actually going to take you 2 weeks, you're going to feel like an epic loser every time, no matter how much time you put in.
Really good points there. Okay, give me an example of what this might look like in practice.
Full disclosure, hilarious story. When your producer reached out to me to do this topic, I was deep in this particular issue personally, even though I help people with this. So I am migrating some parts of my business to a new online platform. I have some people helping me with that, but there's some stuff I have to do. I'm not a technical person. I have no idea how long it's going to take. So I was feeling really frustrated, and I actually ended up talking to my therapist about it. I was like, oh my God, I help people with this for a living. Why is this so hard? And she was like, oh, why don't you try breaking it down into increments of time instead of saying, oh, I'll get this part of the project finished today. So what I did is I said, okay, it's Monday morning. I'm going to spend 3 hours working on this thing. And it was the first time I didn't feel like a failure for not getting as much done as I wanted to, because I put in the time, and that counts.
So how do we avoid procrastinating? Can you give us some tips?
One of the best things you can do is just develop a little bit of self-awareness around what your personal, what I call procrastination red flags are. The sneaky things you do to avoid doing the thing you actually are supposed to be doing. We all have them. Like, I'll just tell you what mine are. Snacking. If I'm combing the cupboards for a snack when I'm not hungry, there is guaranteed something I'm avoiding. Also, organizing stuff that doesn't need to be organized. So like if my sock drawer is looking really good and my silverware drawer is spotless, again, I'm probably avoiding something. The other big one for me is over planning, like researching things to death instead of moving into action. So if you can figure out what your red flags are when you're avoiding something, you can kind of catch yourself in the act and pull yourself out of it a little bit.
That is so good. Although I will say the byproduct is my house has never looked cleaner when I'm trying to avoid doing something. I'm like dusting,
Yeah.
sweeping. I sweep during my workouts now because I'm like looking under the couch and I don't want to work out. So I'm just gonna sweep the basement. Thank you so much, Sarah. It's about self-awareness and about figuring out what works for our particular brain. And I think that is always excellent advice. Thanks for that.